right, welcome to another episode of Piecing It Together, the podcast where we take a look at a new movie and try to figure out what movies inspired it. And today on the show, we're not just taking on any old movie, we're taking on the biggest movie. This is probably going to be the biggest movie of all time. It is, of course, Avengers Endgame. And as we did with its predecessor, Avengers Infinity War, we're doing a super episode. This is no mere movie that could be covered by just one co-host. No, we got 6 co-hosts for this episode. So you're going to be hearing 6 separate, small little conversations with a couple of puzzle pieces apiece. And joining us for it, we've got returning co-hosts David Quinones, Clinton Freeman, Jacob Toronto. But then we also got a few new people joining us who will hopefully be on the show in the future on some regular full-length episodes. We got the Lady-Wan from Screen Fix Podcast. We got B. Garner from Filmotomy and Jump Cut Online. And we've also got Rico Albarracin from Always the Critic Movie Podcast. So we got a lot of great conversations coming up. And before we get into them, as always, I want to remind you, if this is your first time listening to the show, make sure you're subscribed to Piecing It Together on your podcast app of choice. We're on most of the major podcast apps, and whatever one you're listening to it right now on, you can subscribe right there. You can also follow us on social media at PiecingPod, and make sure to join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, a movie discussion group where the conversation about this movie and all the movies we talk about continues. So, based on the records that it's setting, I would assume that you've all seen Avengers Endgame by now. If not, remember there's going to be spoilers in this conversation. But who are we kidding? You already saw it. So let's just get into the conversations. All right, so joining us for this segment, we've got with us Jacob Toronto of Chasing Cinema, who hasn't been here for a while, but I'm glad to have you back, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be back and talking about such a movie.
Yeah. When it comes to blockbusters, does it get any bigger than this? I don't think so.
Yeah, this is, it's pretty crazy because everyone is really excited, but it really hasn't sunk in that this is going to be a really big milestone to look back on in 20, 30 years as like, Endgame was this massive movie that came out and hit numbers. I just was reading today, like, I think they're projecting now $340 million over the weekend.
I saw 349.
Yeah, that's a third of the highest grossing movie in America, like out the gate. So that's pretty impressive. That's pretty wild.
It's absolutely crazy. So, obviously this is it's a tough one to come up with the puzzle pieces because it's kind of just, it's an Avengers movie. Yeah. But what do you got, though, for your first puzzle piece?
Yeah, so I was having a really tough time as soon as you asked me about being on the show. And I was thinking, like, well, there's a lot of generic, options, obviously all the time traveling and stuff like that. But I was trying to think of something a bit more unique and align it with what really made me love Endgame, because I was a really, really big fan of the movie. And so I came up with something that might be a little bit of a stretch, just like how my last time was when we did searching. But I think it's a good one, and it's the 2008 Darren Aronofsky film, The Wrestler.
Ooh, okay.
So there is this side note. I'm a really, really big professional wrestling fan, and of course, the stories, how it usually goes with the stories of professional wrestlers is that they have their prime, they exit their prime, but still aren't comfortable leaving their craft, and many of them end up very broke, spending all their money, and just end up doing shows with audiences of like 50, right. But they just can't say goodbye to the fame, and that's what really The Wrestler's about. The Wrestler, of course, was the resurrection of Mickey Rourke's career, and he played this old-time wrestler whose glory past wasn't happening anymore, but he continued to go to these shows and continue to wrestle in front of people of maybe 10, 20, because that's what he loved and that's what he felt that he needed to be. And of course, I know Dave already threw a spoiler, a warning out, but obviously to me that really aligned with Tony Stark's arc.
Right.
I think the really, obviously Robert Downey Jr. Really, really dedicated himself to this role. He hasn't done much outside of the Avenger movies since he's taken on this role. He's really kind of taken that image on as his own. And that's something rarely you don't see. So it is almost this kind of meta thing where Robert Downey has taken this character full circle, and then we have the actual character of Tony Stark going full circle. But for me, obviously, what we have here is a character who knows that he has a child. When we find him in Endgame, at least, he has moved on with his life. but deep down, Iron Man is still there, and Iron Man
Right,
can't
right.
rest. And I think that that's obviously like the main point of the movie, right? Is he can't rest yet because he can't stop what he knows he needs to do until it's eventually what takes him. And that to me spoke so much like Darren Aronofsky's journey, because what I loved about Endgame is that it is this drama, it is this character study
Oh, yeah.
of everyone getting these second chances, and you know, for those who haven't seen The Wrestler, Mickey Rourke is offered a chance to come back to a really big show, even though he's much older and it is not looking good for his health, but you know, he's called and he has to kind of go back into the spotlight. And for me, those characters are very similar. They're incredibly tragic, incredibly moving, and also incredibly proud, all at the same time. And for me, that there's just such parallels in that. And I think that's kind of why Tony Stark is such a powerful figure, particularly in Endgame.
There's also a feeling that while they're given the choice, they never really had a choice.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they have to go back.
They know that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and actually, this kind of will involve my my later puzzles, but it's very Western. You know, some of these characters know they just need to ride off in the sunset, and you know, and they do it by what they feel is their responsibility. So they can't rest until they do their job and finish their job. And I think that's, for me, that big character moment and that character arc is really what spoke to me out of Endgame. So I think was a perfect puzzle piece for it.
Well, you know, real quick before we go on to your next one, you know, you're talking about Robert Downey Jr. and his arc and everything. I really do worry a little bit about what's going to happen in Phase 4. Like, are we going to be able to connect with the character as much as we have with Iron Man, with Tony Stark? I mean, it really is the center of this whole thing, and it's going to be really tough. I mean, there's plenty of great characters within the universe and ones that they haven't done yet, but I mean, it is a little troubling.
Because Endgame is what, like 23rd in the MCU? 23?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, of course, they eventually got the formula down, but in reality, Iron Man and the probably 6 or 7 that followed all really just happened to get lucky, if we think about it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I know Robert, I mean, obviously there was some intentions to create some major franchise. But I don't, obviously, I mean, they've all said they had no idea really how big it was going to get. But, you know, and I think that's going to be hard to recreate. I mean, I think that's another really great moment in Endgame is when we have, you know, the 3 OGs. We're missing Banner, unfortunately, but you have Thor, Cap, and then you have Iron Man. And I don't know if you're going to catch fire like that again with those characters.
Yeah.
Sure, everyone digs Captain Marvel, and people are really digging Black Panther. Everyone likes the Guardians, but I don't know if they love those characters like they love Iron. I mean, 10 years is a long time to be dedicated to a character.
Yeah.
And I mean, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, to sustain a character that long, to make audiences continue to want to see that character for that long. I mean, all those elements are really tough. But now maybe with, you know, the unbeatable formula, it's just a matter of until that formula, people get tired of it.
Yeah.
But I know I don't connect to Captain Marvel the way that I've connected to these characters. I'm really intrigued by Black Panther, but I haven't had an emotional connection with Black Panther in 3 movies or in 2 movies.
Sure.
You know, and I think that's kind of the thing. So it's really interesting to see where they're going to focus their solo movies and whose stories are really going to start to develop going forward.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what is your next puzzle piece?
So my next puzzle piece, I kind of teased it a bit. It actually goes back to Westerns, and it's not specifically Westerns, but it is kind of the idea of the ensemble cast. And I think that one of the major influences to Avengers Endgame is literally taking some of or not some, if not most of the top names in Hollywood right now and putting them on screen, which is not an easy task to do. And it immediately made me think of How the West Was Won or The Magnificent Seven, these classic Western films that took these Western stars and combined them in a movie. Magnificent Seven is a perfect example. You just combine these 7 great characters who we've seen in this genre before, and we combine them and make this ultimate team. And you know, we have it again in It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. You have the comedy, you know, all these great comedic actors all combined. And what other one I was looking at? So yeah, for It's a Mad, Mad World, you have Spencer Tracy, Milton Berle, you have Mickey Rooney, Sid C. I mean, you are taking top talents of said genre and combining them, and that's obviously what Endgame did. You have JFK, Jack Lemmon, Kevin Costner. I mean, there's all these talents, and it takes a really, really group of talented filmmakers to really be able to give every caliber of an actor time.
Right.
And I think this movie balanced it well. I mean, obviously, I think if some people do have some complaints about any characters, it's most of the characters who returned, because really we only get like a scene and it's usually just kind of a fighting moment. So we don't get much out of Bucky or Black Panther or, you know, Valkyrie or those characters. But I mean, the time that we spend with Thor and Cap and Iron Man here is so important, and all that balance. And I think also knowing when to really throw out characters. You know, for me, I've enjoyed the MCU. I haven't loved everything. I think majority of the stuff is good. There are a few that I weren't a fan of, but I could say that I was in no way emotionally connected, or at least I felt emotionally connected or invested in both Black Widow or Hawkeye. And that might be a little bit because they are such OG characters, but those characters never really had major arcs for me to follow.
I'm just so glad he didn't say Ant-Man.
Okay.
That's my boy.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, Ant-Man, of course, comes at us in a completely different way, just being so charming that we're just so susceptible to him. But, and of course, the whole daughter angle makes us obviously really care. But Natasha is a character that we've seen in these movies, and she plays, of course, that BA character, but not a character we have emotional investment in. Right. And that's where this movie really works, is our emotional investment in Cap's story. And all these second chances, right? And it goes back to the wrestler. This whole movie is about every character getting their second chance.
Yeah.
And I didn't think that scene would hit me as hard as, I mean, those two characters fighting for redemption in their own right while trying to save someone they deeply love is an incredibly like beautiful scene. And I know I'm really getting far away from the whole Western and the whole compilation thing, but I mean, it just really speaks to their talent to know when to use these characters' abilities. We know Scarlett Johansson and Jeremy Renner are talented actors, and even though their characters probably don't have strong arcs like the others, the filmmakers know when to really bring them in and tell them to really emphasize that performance to make that scene so important. And I think that takes a caliber filmmaker to handle that kind of talent. So while, yes, this movie is like those in the sense that they have a lot of talented people and they're a huge all-star cast, but they're also well-made and they know how to use each member of the cast in certain moments and sequences. And I think that really speaks to the Russo brothers here.
Yeah, I think this is the last time we're going to see a cast this big for quite a while.
This is huge.
Yeah.
And you know, I was really trying to think of all the names. Like, if you could just take an average person, obviously you and I and the people who are really big in the film community or really love movies, we all know a lot of the people, but I just wondered how many average Joes can name as many Avenger names. And I just think it's insane how many probably people that everyone could recognize in the MCU, and that's a really talented like list. I mean, going through that credit, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
I mean, even
crazy.
for like the what 30-second Natalie Portman cameo, you're just like, that's an incredible pull.
They got her in. They got so many people. So did you have any other puzzle pieces?
So my last one kind of ties in. Again, it's more of the epic. The idea that there are these movies that are meant to be like these huge, big changes in the world of movie going. You have Gone with the Wind, you have Lawrence of Arabia, you know, you have Ben-Hur, these movies that are meant to feel massive on a massive scale. And a 3-hour movie with combining a list of an ensemble cast like that is obviously incredibly impressive. And this is going to be a huge landmark. And, you know, early reviews were calling it an epic masterpiece. And, you know, I mean, we don't really see the epic genre unless you kind of study film or look back at classic film. You know, you don't ever say like, oh, that's an epic coming out. Like, it's not something that's really like this very popular genre or something that's in the culture so much unless you're in the film community. But there are those films that really stand out as these huge timestamps.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you could probably say Lord of the Rings might have been our last massive epic, you know?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, that's a long time. And even then, I'm curious to see who people will be talking about more in the future, if it will be Endgame or Lord of the Rings. But I think that's worth having, and not many movies like that come in a lifetime. So I think that's incredibly, you know, rewarding to handle such a movie at that scale. I mean, 10 years of investment. I mean, the amount of scripts and rewrites, and I don't think we all imagine and how I don't think everyone realizes just how much went into that. And it's crazy that not only did it work, but it worked so well.
Yeah. Well, I find it, I wouldn't say surprising because it is Marvel after all, but with the way that people are so ready to just be like, yeah, I'm 100% I just want to watch streaming stuff. I just want to watch little TV shows and stuff like that. That they're still embracing a movie of this scale. That they're still running out to the theater to see it. That's promising.
Well, at least. I think it is promising, but I do think that it does raise this interesting question. If like at what cost though? I mean, yeah, of course, this is a massive movie, and I mean, it's the numbers I'm sure it will do are crazy, but it took obviously so much work, and I think that's what's really interesting is seeing where the Marvel universe goes forward.
Yeah,
can the saga sustain even afterwards? I am assuming yes, but like all things, all bubble pop. All the bubbles will eventually pop. I just don't know when.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see how long we have of the big superhero craze. Not that I want it to end, but I mean it won't be the main focus forever, and it's just curious to see how all that changes.
I just want more Ant-Man sized superhero movies because I love Ant-Man.
Yeah, Ant-Man's the guy, huh? Is that your favorite?
He's my favorite.
So let me ask you real quick, and I know we have a lot of people on, so I don't want to take up too much time. But were you going into Avengers pretty set that you were going to really enjoy it, or did you have? I mean, how do you feel about these?
I am not the biggest superhero movie fan.
So I'm with you.
Yeah, but I had a feeling. I mean, they know what they're doing.
Yeah,
they know how to put on a show. They know how to entertain. And while there's certainly a lot of fan service for things, I mean, there's even a few of these movies I haven't seen. So I've seen probably like 17 or 18 of the 22 before it. So there was bound to be parts that I was just like eating my popcorn during. But yeah, I knew that they were gonna really just bring it home. I mean, they had to. They have so much riding on it.
See, after Infinity War, I was like, okay, we're going in that direction. We're following that formula. And then that's why I think I was just so pleased with Endgame, because I thought I was going to enjoy Endgame. And sure, there were going to be the moments that, I was going to get emotional. I mean, these, like I said, 10 years of investment. But I had no idea they were going to go the direction they did, taking out Thanos, going the 5 years later out. And of course, again, making this kind of dramatic character study with all these characters getting their second chances and these really deep emotional moments, I thought was really kind of a really big change of what I was expecting. I was expecting another Infinity War, let's just get all these guys on the screen and fight. And I really was happy that they really took the time and it was just like they made every emotional investment pay off. And they did it in such a style that it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel, and I don't have much to complain about that movie. And there are so many little things in that movie that work for me. I think, just talking about Robert Downey Jr., there's that great moment where he forgets the briefcase as he runs into his dad. And of course, it's just, he's distracted, he forgets his briefcase. And you don't think about it too deep, but you think about the idea that this man was willing to forget, the one thing that could save humanity's future just because he saw like how much that means to him. That's pretty heavy, I think. The moments between Thor and his mother were incredibly touching.
Oh, yeah.
Her line, I don't know it verbatim, but her line that we all fail to become the people we're supposed to be. It's the key to success is becoming the person who you really are. I thought that was really a beautiful moment for that character. I wish they would have somehow figured out a way for him to cut the weight by the end of the movie. The fat suit was cool, but it ran its course. But there was just so much here. Every character, I mean, just such emotional stakes were met here that I have not really to complain.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's pretty clear that you loved the movie. Do you have any other closing thoughts about it?
I'm really excited, and like you said, I'm really excited about how excited it's making people about movies. A really cool thing, at least locally, is that our drive-in, which we do have a drive-in here in Vegas, is going to be running from dusk till dawn doing screenings. And I was at AMC on Thursday night at Town Square, and they closed at 1 to reopen at 2. I mean, I've never in my life seen people go into a movie at 3:45 or 3:15 in the morning. So that is like just such a really cool thing to see, and I hope that obviously we keep seeing this grow. But obviously a big fan of the movie. I am so excited to hear how everyone really kind of I'm excited to hear all the puzzle pieces together as you wrap this up. But it was, I was very happy with the movie, and I'm excited to hear what everyone has to say.
Absolutely. Well, hey, as always, thank you for being here. Where can people find your stuff?
So I am on Chet Buchanan Show on 98.5 KLUC every Friday around 8:45 a.m. I'm also on ChasingCinema.com, where you can find video reviews, written reviews, and I also write for FilmRacket.com.
Beautiful. Well, again, thanks for being here, and
Appreciate
we're getting you back for another full one sometime soon. Let's do it. All right, so we are talking about Avengers Endgame, and with me up next is Rico from Always the Critic podcast. Rico, thanks for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I reaching out to lots of people on film Twitter, and I got lots of friends that want to be on this, and people who have been on the show before. But always glad to have new voices here on the show. So really happy to have you here. You went and saw Avengers Endgame immediately when it came out, as the rest of us did. I'm assuming you were there one of those opening nights.
Oh yeah, I was right there on Thursday night. I had a 6:30 showing here on the East Coast. And
Nice.
and I actually, after this recording, will be watching it for a second time.
Nice.
So
Right on. Yeah, I don't know if I'll make it back a second time. I did enjoy it though, but it's I gotta plan my movie hours wisely, and it's a lot of movie hours.
yeah, it's quite a bit of time.
Oh yeah. So why don't we jump in? What is your first puzzle piece you wanted to bring up for Avengers Endgame?
So there's a specific part of the movie where, and it's a huge chunk of the movie, where the movie is dealing with a heist, that they're going back in time. There's so many different ways, but one movie that kind of stood out in my head where I'm using it as a puzzle piece is Ocean's 12. Of all
Okay.
movies, I'm using Ocean's 12. The reason why is because, number one, they're pulling off a heist. They're going back in time and they're taking the stones and they're bringing them back to fix everything. So they
Mhm.
have to be very careful in what they're doing, but also they're almost in a way have to interact with themselves in certain situations. And the biggest uh, moment is in when they go back to New York, to the Battle of New York in 2012.
Mhm.
You have Captain America, who has to pretend that he's the Captain America of 2012. It's almost like in Ocean's 12 when Julia Roberts in the movie has to pretend to be Julia Roberts.
Right.
And
Right.
so he has to pretend that he's there as 2012 Captain America. He gets in the elevator with all these SHIELD agents. And then he even gives them a fake line, pretending that he's one of them.
Right.
And
Right.
then on top of that, you have the Hulk, who he has to pretend to be angry and smash stuff, even though he doesn't want to, but he has to keep up the appearance that he is from 2012. I thought
Yeah.
was hilarious, and that's what came to mind when I saw that.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a great comparison there. And I haven't seen Ocean's 12 since the theater, but you're bringing it all back to me. And like that whole that whole sequence of how they had to be playing those parts and everything to make it all work, and how it mirrored their real personas and everything. And yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that as a puzzle piece. And it's such a fun bit of fan service. We were talking about it on some of the other conversations we've had on the movie, but that whole segment of the film, it just it just really goes a long way to give fans specifically something special.
Without a doubt. And also, by the way, both movies have Don Cheadle, so that's another connection just right there alone.
There you go. There you go. More movies need Don Cheadle, I think.
Oh, for sure.
So what would your second puzzle piece be?
Well, this one is more about an observation that I've noticed, and it's ever since the Russo brothers have taken over the MCU they've directed Captain America Civil War, Winter Soldier, Infinity War. They have taken some of their past collaborators and put them into the movies, more specifically
Mhm.
from the show's Community. They did a few
Mm.
episodes with the show, they directed some, and the stars of the show have been popping up here and there throughout some of the movies. Like Daniel Pudi, he's showed up in Winter Soldier. In this movie, you had Nicole Yvette Brown. There has been there's two other characters. Oh, Ken Jeong was in this movie as well as a
Right,
security
right.
guard. So, the Russo brothers haven't forgotten that they came from TV and they really had a special bond with those people that they did on Community, that they're willing to just give them even non-speaking parts in these giant action movies.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's really cool too, because any time filmmaker comes from something a little smaller and goes to something as insanely massive as these Avengers movies, it's awesome to be able to bridge that gap and bring people along with you and everything. And it doubles, I was just talking about fan service with that first puzzle piece. It doubles as fan service, really, because, a lot of people who are into all this Marvel stuff are, there's a lot of crossover there with shows like Community, like just fun cult shows like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're only missing 3 at this point because they just had Donald Glover, even though they didn't direct Spider-Man: Homecoming, but he was also in there. They're just missing Joel McHale, Gillian Jacobs, and Allison Brie somewhere in the MCU.
You know what? I think Joel McHale, it might be a while, but I think the other two, they've got a chance. They're going to be in something sooner or later.
Yeah, it would be pretty funny if they completed the entire cast.
I could see Joel McHale maybe in Ant-Man 3.
Yeah, just as
a good fit.
As some, boss that nobody likes.
Right. Yeah. No, that would be definitely a good fit right there. Right on. Do you have any other puzzle pieces? Obviously, we're keeping these things short.
I mean, with the time travel, you could choose just about any movie.
Oh yeah.
And they even go about saying it in the movie. They start naming them and rattling them off. So,
Yeah.
I think you can pick any one of them and you could see the influence there. But I think it's more of like they were trying to subvert
Exactly.
the different things that come with a time travel movie. So instead of like when you go back to the past, it affects the future, they came up with something different. So even though they have the influence, they decided to change it up a bit.
Yeah, and there's really time travel opens up such a can of worms.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
just so much you could do, and there's always like you kind of at this point, especially in a movie this big, you have to get out in front and reference it a little bit that it's a movie trope like forever now, and it's so many different worlds and so many different movies. It's like you just kind of have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Well, right on. So overall, what'd you think of Endgame? Were you happy with it as a fan of these movies?
I was very happy with it. The movie works more as a culmination, as an event, as something that if you have been in the MCU, if you've been a fan of the movies, this is a rewarding experience and it's a great time. As I said, I have tickets to go see it again. So I can't wait to see that. And it works overall if you've been a fan of the MCU. I feel bad for people who have never seen any of the movies and then try to jump in on this one. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I've only missed like 2 and I was lost at a few parts, but yeah, I know what you mean.
So, but yeah, I think it's very well done. Great job by the Russos. And I look forward to checking it out again just to see what I may have missed because there was a lot of cheering in my screening when I saw it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was a lively showing, as these movies always are, though. Really,
Yeah, for
when
sure.
it comes down to it. Well, right on, Rico. Thanks so much for being here. Why don't you tell people where they can find your podcast? And yeah,
Of course. So you can find us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Always Critic Pod. You can even check out our website, which is alwaysthecriticpod.wordpress.com. We post new episodes every single Tuesday, so you can find us on any of the streaming platforms where you find your podcast right now.
awesome. Sounds great. Well, again, thanks for being here, and maybe we'll get you on a regular episode one of these days.
Hey, I would much appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, so coming up next is B. Garner from Filmotomy and Jump Cut Online. B, thanks for being here. I know you just got out of the theater. What did you think?
Oh my gosh, it was so good. I'm still like on a high from it.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And I'm not even a huge comic book fan. Like, for me, I think it's probably because I've been so disappointed by like DC films. But yeah, I was crying in so many different points of that movie, and it's really good. Like, the time goes by so quickly.
Yeah, it did go by surprisingly quickly. I didn't even have to pee the whole time, which I really didn't expect. So do you have any puzzle pieces for it?
Yeah. So while I was watching it, I was thinking of Force Awakens.
Okay.
Star Wars, obviously. um, and the reason I'm thinking of this is because this was Force Awakens was really an event movie. Like
Mhm.
it was the first. Like, come on, let's not talk about the prequels. Okay, those never happened.
Sure.
This is-
Depending on your age, some people love those. I think they grew up with them or something. I don't know.
Ugh, yeah. Anyway, I try to not think about them. But for me, I think what about Force Awakens was it brought the community together, the Star Wars community together, and was like all ages, old, young, and it was really a film that brought a lot of loose ties together. And I feel like the same thing was with Endgame. You have this community brought together, and it's a payoff for all that sort of films that you've watched. And there's a lot of moments where they go back and revisit. You see like scenes from like earlier movies and have like this recap, and you get that sense in a Force Awakens where um, old characters and the new characters are being brought together, and the torch is almost being passed to the next generation.
Sure.
And I think that's what we're getting here with Endgame, is obviously setting up for the next stage of the MCU, and it's a nice sort of reunion, but at the same time we're losing a few people and we're saying goodbye to them, and it's coming to an end on their chapters, but the story is still going, the saga is still going, and that's what happens with Force Awakens. Is we're having a setup of new characters, and the torch is being passed on to them for them to carry on with their stories. And I think as well, it's like going to the cinema today, the whole cinema was like packed with people,
Oh
and
yeah.
the response, like the audience reaction, was the same sort of. I tried to think of a film where I had the last experience where I had like everybody sort of quiet, like not even eating their popcorn or slurping on a drink. They were so sort of um, transfixed to what was happening on screen, and I was immediately thought back to my reaction and experience to watching A Force Awakens.
Sure. Yeah. And I think people are gonna remember this moment for a long time. Remember
Mm.
watching this movie. It's just such a big cultural moment. And then of course, with the records that it's gonna break. I mean, we're already seeing the news pouring in today about records that it's breaking. So I mean, it's gonna be a big moment for all of Hollywood and all of movie history, really, and people's relationship with movies, really.
Yeah, and I'm uh, Star Wars hasn't finished yet, but the final film is sort of coming out at the end of this year, and I
Mhm.
wonder like where are they going to go with the the franchise. And I'm thinking that right now with Marvel, like what is the next direction, where they're going with it. And I'm kind of excited because you don't you did they've created such a great universe. It's the same with Star Wars. They've created this amazing universe which has so much potential to go and explore different characters and their lives and background and the backstories. And um, yeah, it's just and you just have so many possibilities, and that's what's really exciting for me. And I just have this sort of the the parallels and the fact that they're both owned by Disney.
I know. I was just thinking the exact same thing. Both owned by Disney. They're sitting here listening to us talk, and they're just rubbing their hands together, like, yes, that's right.
They're still gonna get that money from me.
Oh, Disney, you've got us all hook, line, and sinker.
Deliver
Um,
us a good X-Men movie, and that's it. I'll be happy forever.
Nice, nice. Well, right on. Well, thanks for jumping in, giving us a puzzle piece. You have any other closing thoughts? I know you just saw the movie this morning, so you probably have to give it a little time to stir around in the old brain for a
Yeah.
little bit. But do you have any other thoughts about it before we close it up?
I just have like I really don't know if we're ever going to have a franchise that can pull off something like Marvel did. Like,
Hmm.
it's really something that I feel like maybe when I'm old, I'll be talking to my grandchildren. I'll be like, I remember when the first Marvel movie came out. It's really like a thing, like you say, is like something that hasn't been seen before in the history of cinema, and um, it's brought us all together. Even if you're not like you'd like me, a bit of I know my bit of comic book trivia, but not very much, or like a diehard fan. It's all there for us to enjoy, and really, we should be brought together and shouldn't be divided as a sort of a film community. It's a film that anyone can enjoy really, and you know um, just go out and enjoy it, and don't spoil it for anyone. That's it.
Yes,
Please don't.
absolutely. Yeah, if you're listening to this episode, spoilers are going to happen. However, you should not be spoiling movies on Twitter or anywhere publicly where you don't actually have to download and hit play or anything like that. Well, right on. B, thanks for doing this. And you're actually going to be on our Under the Silver Lake episode coming up real soon, a week or two. And so we'll get you the full introduction to our Piecing It Together listeners when we do that. But for now, if you want to just plug your website where you do your film writing.
Yep, you can find me at filmotomy.com, and we basically do anything and everything. So look at world cinema, independent cinema, documentaries, female filmmakers, and mainstream films as well. So yeah, head on over and you'll get some great quality content.
Beautiful. Thanks for joining me.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, we got Q with us to talk about Avengers Endgame. Hey, Q.
Hey, everyone.
I know we got to finish this up before Game of Thrones, so let's do it. Let's jump into
you know what?
it.
That's not that important. What's important is this.
What?
I have my priorities straight. I know what matters. The jewel in the empire, one of the jewels in my jewel encrusted empire. Piecing it together. A show about movies.
Mm-hmm.
It's critical, and it's more important than just any old TV show.
Oh, okay. I like it. I like that. I like that you're being so sweet to me right now.
So really, jumping right in.
Nice.
My puzzle piece. How many puzzle pieces a piece are we puzzling?
Couple, 2, 3.
Couple,
like
2, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I got 2 that'll line up. Maybe a third one will come to me.
Perfect.
Number 1, jumping right into it. I'm gonna break format as I am wont to do, because I pay for it, and I am going to say the aforementioned Game of Thrones. I know that we usually stick with movies, but I'm sticking with probably the most cinematic representation of culture and in the genre of television, and that is season 6, episode 9, Battle of the Bastards, which I know that you haven't watched, but is still, I think most people would agree, one of the greatest achievements on film, whether it's a movie or television show. This movie, Avengers Endgame, must draw at some inspiration from that specific episode, which was directed by Miguel Sapochnik, I think is his name. He's the guy who directed Repo Men. So he's, I think, best known as the director of Repo Men, but he also directed this and several other really, like, sort of all the big game changer Game of Thrones episodes. The scene where our hero Jon Snow, who is basically a stand-in for Captain America, just is alone, crushed and defeated, standing athwart an enemy, a horde of thousands, certain doom, certain death facing him, and he just lifts his sword and is ready to face his fate, without any hint of cowardice or any hint of hesitation. It's the exact same scene as Captain America doing the exact same thing to a horde of aliens that are facing him down before the cavalry arrives. Of course, Jon Snow is still alive in Game of Thrones in the similar plot contrivance saved him there. A huge arrival of cavalry that helped him out. Similarly, in the Battle of the Bastards, for any of you TV fans out there who are also Game of Thrones fans and who watched and rewatched and watched for a third time that incredible episode of television, you'll remember that Rickon Stark, one of the more innocent characters, members of the Stark family, was brutally killed, took an arrow bolt through the chest, very, very brutally, just when it seemed like he was going to get away. It just the sense of loss, the sense of finality, the ultimate undoing of the villain, of course Thanos in the Avengers side, sort of fading and crumbling and dying, compared with the far more brutal, I would say, death of Ramsay Bolton, who was, of course, the antagonist in that particular chapter of Game of Thrones, where he's basically disemboweled and ripped limb from limb by wolves. It just all feels the same. The action is similarly, I don't know what you call that, Dave, when action is like stirring, like you feel it, like it has kinetic energy to it. There's so much. How many action movies do you watch in a year where it just feels like there's just like big, like heavy mountains of people smashing into each other, and it doesn't feel like anything, right?
Right. Yeah. They're just like little ants, little CGI ants.
Starting around Civil War. No, you know what? Before that, starting around Winter Soldier, the Russo brothers really kind of cornered this market on action that felt like visceral. Like you got punched, like a character gets punched and you feel it in your teeth. You're like, damn, that fucking looked like it hurt. And similarly, Game of Thrones is in their large action set pieces, as I'm sitting here 20 minutes away from what's going to be the largest action set piece that's ever been filmed in the coming Battle of Winterfell that's about to air in 20 minutes and will have aired by the time this episode goes live. It has a similar feeling to that. You feel the reverberation of a sword slamming against the bone of a horse's leg, like like if you feel it, like it's got that same viscera to it.
Yeah, I'd almost say my favorite part of the movie, aside from the various Ant-Man scenes, was Captain America's like swipes and attacks. Like, I mean, they were just that the sound design alone was just like crunching. You know what I mean? As he was,
I think so much of it is the sound, right? That's how you make that happen.
Oh yeah.
There's some camera tricks involved, but for the most part, I think it's the sound.
Yeah.
Like if you're able to. I think the worst action movies are the ones that just have like generic thuds and pops and smashes, Right. And then the ones that really push the boundary, push the envelope with sound in fights are the ones. I remember I think I've talked about this one before. Again, another television series, which was season 1, episode 2 of Daredevil, which I think still is the most famous or well-known fight or scene in all of those Marvel Netflix shows. The way that they filmed and choreographed that really brutal hallway fight, so much of it was thanks to the sound design and the echoing and the way that they played sound off of the walls of that corridor, and the way that the punches and the cracks of wood happened and played out. It's small stuff. And just small looks. I don't know. I don't know. I really love it when somebody cares enough about action to make it thoughtful. And that was what I think on a second watch, probably to appreciate Avengers Endgame, you really see how that final scene, really plays out. I would say to draw an end to my comparison here, Battle of the Bastards is basically the third act. That fulfillment, that feeling of like, fuck yes, I've been waiting 6 seasons to see this. At that point, I think people had watched a solid 70 hours of Game of Thrones at that point. And similarly, how many hours of 22 movies times like 2.5 hours a piece? This was all payoff. This was a big payoff.
And they really needed to stick that landing. I mean, there's a lot of emotional payoff as well, but I mean, really when it comes down to it, I mean, people wanted a big, huge battle with all of these characters, all these actors actually managing to get, even if they're in there for like 30 seconds, like everybody getting a moment to do some badass action comic book stuff.
Well, this was a tough one. I had to go to television for this because I can't, this movie's so unique. There's never been a situation where you've had 60 hours of runtime or 50 some odd hours of runtime to build up to something with character development throughout that isn't television, and nothing on the scale of what Marvel is apart from Game of Thrones. There's really nothing else that is this sort of omniculture representative that could be compared. Like, yeah, I could sit here and go through, I have another choice that's going to be on a smaller scale than this and is, a more minute parallel from cinema that we'll hear right after, you say yours. But there's nothing I think that is more like longitudinal than this with respect to what this payoff represented for the people that followed it.
Absolutely.
Maybe tonight that show, the episode that's about to come on in now 15 minutes, like that might be something, that wipes the board clean too as well.
I imagine do you think they knew that they were going to be running the same weekend as they did Avengers, and that they'd have to like really up the game a little bit?
I wonder, right? Because like they have to know, because those production schedules are around town in Hollywood. Everybody knows what's coming out when.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. They had to know.
Well, what is your next puzzle piece? Because I actually don't do one. It's just gonna be me just moderating. So
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well then, fuck you.
Yes. Thank you.
So my next puzzle piece is a little far more obscure. It is 2006's David Lynch film Inland Empire, and I picked Inland Empire because similar to Avengers Endgame, it takes place across a few different timelines. There's a passage of time, and there are introductions of a lot of. Now, here's the difference. In Avengers Endgame, all the actors are obviously playing the same characters that they've been playing since 2008 for 11 years now, over the course of 22 movies to one degree or another. In Inland Empire, what happened was David Lynch brought in all of his favorite actors that he's used throughout his very storied career, and they all played something approximating from Laura Dern, who played the main character, all the way down, to like one of our favorites, Justin Theroux.
Right.
So all the way down to like Justin Theroux, who is also a David Lynch favorite. He kind of brought in all these characters. Did you ever see this movie?
Yeah. I saw it once a long time ago. Yes, it's madness.
So yeah, it's insane and it's crazy, but it also follows some similar beats to Avengers Endgame, and it just gave me a reason to kind of rewatch that movie because I really liked it.
Nice.
And I've been meaning to get back into David Lynch for a while now, and that might be a good entry point.
Yeah, I haven't seen that movie in so long, but like that crazy, just like pulling all these people together that are like from your stable. I could totally see that, exactly what you're trying to talk about right there.
So that's what I got, Dave. And
right on.
I don't know. I love the movie. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
It was maybe my top 10 Marvel movies, which I love all the Marvel movies for the most part. I love that it gave us a chance to revisit what I think is sort of an underrated movie, or a movie that is underrated in importance in the Marvel canon, which was Thor: The Dark World. I think most people think it was probably the most forgettable of the Marvel movies. It gave us a chance to sort of revisit that. I don't know. What did you think of the movie?
I liked it.
We haven't talked about it.
Yeah, I know. And I'm sure that we'll talk about it a bunch more on Bird Road, but like I did like it. No, not at all. It's not even going to come up a little bit. We're not going to spend 1 minute. But no, I think it's, clearly for the fans, the bulk of this movie. And obviously, I enjoy these Marvel movies, but it's not really my thing. And so there are a lot of moments where I'm just kind of just along for the ride, and it was completely enjoyable for those moments. But then when it did, go above that, I think it was pretty great. When it got really funny or really great action or just really really great emotional moments. I mean that stuff all really worked really well. And,
when did people cheer in your film in your theater?
That is a very interesting point because I had a pretty packed crowd and there was not a lot of cheering. Was
Nobody
there a lot
cheered
of yours?
when Black Panther came walking out of the portal.
Yes. You're absolutely right. That was like probably the biggest cheer of
For me, the
the
biggest
entire thing.
For me, the biggest at my theater, the biggest cheer. And I was in a theater in Atlanta with
Uh-huh.
a predominantly African American crowd,
Uh-huh.
and that was a big cheer. But the bigger cheer was for Spider-Man.
Huh.
Like
Interesting.
significantly bigger cheer was for Spider-Man. I was just kind of surprised. I was like, really? Okay.
Well,
But
that's pretty cool.
I mean, Spider-Man had a huge movie. I mean, that movie was big too. So
Yeah,
and he's a
people
little.
love that movie.
I think people were more affected by the death of Peter Parker because of the sort of earnest sadness of him being a little kid, and I mean, relatively, he was a baby. He's like 15.
Yeah.
He's playing. I mean, Tom Holland, I'm sure is like 34, but
Yeah.
but he's playing
15
a
in
15-year-old.
Hollywood years.
Yeah, he looks 15.
Yeah.
So my point in that was for people like you who don't come to these movies with the comic book background, the literacy in comic books that I
Right.
have and that
Right.
other people have. Like, was it interesting to you at all or was it like titillating to you at all when Captain America picked up Thor's hammer? Because that's a comic book thing. That's a thing that happens in the comic book. And, a lot of the things that happen actually are things that happen in comic books. Like, did you care about that? Or was that just like they're just pulling anything out of their ass at this point?
Right. Yeah. No. That was just like oh, I guess he could do stuff with the hammer. He could do stuff with the axe. Like I don't. It was like it was a cool looking weapon to do a thing with.
Yeah. So it just
that's basically what I got out of it.
So that like the profundity of that didn't like
exactly.
make any difference to you.
Yeah. And so it's weird to see if these filmmakers are able to make an audience like me care. And I would say for the most part they do, though. Even if there's some things that are kind of lost on someone like me. Overall,
I was shocked
there's so much to enjoy about it regardless.
I was shocked at how little I, through 9 years, have cared about the Hawkeye and Black Widow character, but found myself caring about them in Vormir, in the scene where the two of them are sort of battling to the other's death.
Uh-huh.
I think is the brilliance of these movies, is that they do actually make you give a shit about characters that I didn't care about those characters when they were in the comic books, and I was like 9 years old and reading those comic books. I didn't give a shit about those two fucking also ran.
Well, I mean,
characters.
it helps. It helps that they get such great actors,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest thing about this whole universe. Really, is I mean, when it comes down to it, this whole universe has to be applauded for the producers' end of being able to cast and keep all of these like incredible actors for all these movies. It's just an amazing feat. I don't see how it'll be done again. Like really.
No, I don't think so either. Because look at the closest ancillary, which is DC.
Mhm.
And all you have are every actor running for the door.
Yeah.
They can't. They do one or two movies in DC, and they just can't wait to get the fuck out.
Yeah.
They're sprinting for the door. Like you forget though. I do want to I guess I would say the last thing I want to mention is like underappreciated talent. Man, you forget that Jeremy Renner. I mean, one of the best actors of his generation.
Oh, he's great.
Has been given. In these 7 or 8 movies that he's been a part of in the Marvel Universe, he has been given virtually nothing until this movie to work with. Has been given almost nothing. And you just forget the character being so boring and, having no significant powers and sort of being the butt of jokes. And you forget, like, hey, give Jeremy Renner some meat and he's on par with a Robert Downey Jr. in terms of chops, in terms of being a great actor. And that is the magic of these movies. Like, you just have one of the best actors of a generation laying in the cut, waiting 21 movies to to deliver real pathos and be like, oh fuck, I guess I do care about this character.
Right. It's amazing that they're able to balance so much of this, and who knows what they're going to do with them going forward, because you know that plenty of these characters are going to continue to get movies, even though it's a whole new thing moving forward. But I'm sure you know more about that than I do, but I guess no one really knows for sure.
Yeah.
I think that about does it. Do you want to do a little plug for the Bird Road live show?
Yeah, Bird Road live show. If anybody out there is in Miami, May 8th, Lifehouse, Little Havana, 7:00. We're going to be having, oh man, have we got a show lined up for your ass. Right now we've got, we're going to be, unfortunately, my colleague Jewish Dave won't be able to make it, so we have a guest co-host, Jerry Anelli from Miami New Times.
Nice.
Who's the civil rights, politics, and environmental reporter. He's going to be there. We're going to be talking to Demetrius Jackson, who, if you're a sports fan, you remember him from his time with the University of Miami Hurricanes as a defensive lineman. Now he's running for Florida State Representative in District 109. He's an Overtown native, and he's going to come talk to us. We got Jeff Campbell, who's the chair of the People's Progressive Caucus of Miami-Dade. Javier Cortada, who's an artist, a professor over at University of Miami, and an activist and one of the founders of Underwater HOA. We've got Dr. Kyla Nishad Bishop, who's a biomedical scientist, member of the Sea Level Rise Committee for the city here, and more. We got more folks who will be confirming to be there. So again, May 8th, Lifehouse, Little Havana, 8 p.m. Check out the Facebook event on Bird Road's Facebook page, or Lifehouse Little Havana's Facebook page. We both have it there.
You've been busy booking this thing. I like last time we talked like a week ago, I didn't know any of these except for like one.
Well, though, it's also, you don't care.
I don't care. What do I care about more, Bird Road or the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
You don't care about Bird Road at all. So the question could be anything.
All right, so now we got with us the Lady-Wan from Screen Fix Podcast. Hey, thanks so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, and we're going to have you on the show for a regular episode soon, but I mean, come on, Avengers Endgame. I mean, we got to get as many people as we can on this thing, and I'm super glad to have you. So why don't we jump in and get to some puzzle pieces? What do you got for your first one?
All right. My first puzzle piece is about the time heist. It feels very Ocean's 11 to me.
Okay.
Yeah. We've got a lot of moving pieces. We got to split the team up. Everybody's got their mission. And if we don't all get it right, it doesn't come together.
Yeah. Everybody's got their little thing, and like every little thing is super intricate and planned. And if it all goes wrong, it's gonna all go wrong, and it all kind of goes wrong for a little while.
Yes.
Yeah. I like it. Definitely a good one. And it's also another thing about the Ocean's movies. And we actually talked about Ocean's 12 in one of the other conversations, funny enough.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So like somebody singled that one out. And so, but the original as well. But, a funny thing just in general with these movies is that also there's a parallel to just having so many big stars in one place at one time, which, I mean, I don't think any movie is ever going to be able to pull off quite as much as Avengers does it. It's really quite the feat.
Yeah, this was incredible.
Yeah, it's really, really, really wild that they're able to get this many people together. And I just... It's crazy, especially once you get to that whole ending scene, and then they're just all on screen. And you're like, how do they even manage this? Like, it's just ridiculous.
Wild.
Right on. Well, what would your next puzzle piece be then?
So my next puzzle piece is actually it was the easiest one right in our faces. Specifically, Back to the Future. When Tony runs into Howard, it's just a cathartic father-son conversation. He understands him better as a father, as a man, and I can only think of Marty and George.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty beautiful moment. And it's sweet, especially because you're trying to finish up this arc for him and this whole. I mean, we've really, when it comes down to it, Iron Man has been the center of all these movies for 23 freaking movies, and so to give him that closure there with his dad is pretty great moment, and I have to imagine that is Back to the Future being a puzzle piece. I have to imagine that is on the mind when you start to come up with the time travel thing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And what would your next one be?
Back to the Future Part 2.
Oh, okay.
So that one I thought of just to see them go back into the background of other movies. That's why in my estimation Back to the Future Part 2 is the best one, because it's the first one and the second one at the same time. And that's what I loved about Avengers Endgame particularly, was when they went to New York 2012. So when they went back to Avengers and I got to see them in the background of scenes that I know and love, it was really cool.
Yeah, it was really inspired, really just to go that direction. And it's funny, I said to one of my friends walking out of the theater that whole sequence kind of reminded me of, do you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
Yes.
Yeah, it reminded me of the clip show episode where they're not quite remembering their clips properly, and so they're going in and changing their own clip show,
Yes.
and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, and speaking specifically though to that puzzle piece and using Back to the Future 2 separately, I find that one, when it comes to time travel movies, comes up more so than the original, and certainly more than the third one. It seems like Back to the Future 2 is where time travel, like, I don't want to say perfected necessarily, but it's definitely where a lot of filmmakers tend to look back towards when they're plotting out how their time travel is going to work.
Yes, and it's how I came to understand the alternate dimensions and alternate timelines, which the Ancient One explains it literally the same way as Doc Brown, just like a line splitting off. She's got the same exact explanation that the Doc has in the second movie. It's perfect.
Yeah, no, that's it's awesome the way that she explains it all, and it's like it kind of makes sense. I mean, time travel never fully makes sense, but it kind of makes sense.
You can't think too hard about it. Just think like a little, and then you're good.
Yeah. As long as you're just get to the next action scene, you're all right.
Yeah.
You're gonna be just fine. So did you have any other puzzle pieces?
I have one more little one.
Okay.
So the last scene with Captain America talking to Sam.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see a guy on a bench without thinking of Forrest Gump. Like, he's sitting there reflecting on his life. It's a beautiful moment, and it just made me think of that movie.
Right on. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that one. I hadn't thought of that, but I could totally see that. And yeah, he's just sitting there, he's reflecting on his life. He's clearly has like all this wisdom at this point after everything he's been through, even though we didn't get to see what he's been through really necessarily. That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It just made me think of it right away. It was just beautiful and made me cry.
Yeah, I that was definitely, I think, for most of the theater, was a waterworks scene for sure. Maybe even more so than Tony Stark's death.
Yeah,
I
for me, definitely. Yeah.
I do wonder though how he had the time to live his life in the past. Mm-hmm. If it was wasn't it like hours to years? Like, I don't really know how that worked, but
it all comes back
travel.
to just don't think too hard. Because
don't think too much with these movies.
I can't.
Yeah. There's no answer to that question. Yeah. I'm running myself in circles just thinking about it.
Yeah, it all falls apart.
Well, right on. So yeah, no, those are great puzzle pieces. And just overall, did you have any other thoughts about the movie, or just how'd you like it?
I have to say it was probably the greatest and will stay the greatest movie-going experience of my life. Just the theater, all the way packed Thursday night, people screaming, crying, cheering, laughing. I've never seen anything like it, and I'm kind of bummed that I probably never will again.
Yeah, I mean, there are like movies that, I mean, I feel like you might personally love more, or I might personally love more, but as like that shared, I mean, this is an experienced movie.
Yes.
I mean, it is an event, you know,
Totally.
and especially for like our age range and like, you know, it's like we all had these movies, you know, at the perfect kind of time. And it's crazy. I mean, people talk about it like it's like, you know, our generation Star Wars. I don't know exactly what your generation is based on versus mine, but you know, but
it feels like it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's just a huge event, and I think they did a great job. They stuck the landing in a pretty big way. And I mean, obviously, as we're sitting here talking, it just made another $100 million probably.
Probably.
So I just got text from like 3 friends who just got out of seeing it. I'm like, you didn't see it like 3 days ago?
What?
Come on, what are you guys doing? Like, you know.
No, what were you like outside or something? Weird.
Yeah, what were you doing with your life? You know, jeez. Well, Lady-Wan, thank you so much for being here. I know this was quick, but we're going to get you back for a full episode sometime soon.
Can't wait.
So again, thank you. And why don't you tell people where they can find your show?
Yeah, we are on every podcast platform, and you can follow us along on Twitter at ScreenFixPod. You'll always see what we're going to be fixing over there.
Perfect. Great show.
Yeah.
Everybody check it out.
Thank you.
All right, so now with us, we've got our old buddy Chad Clinton Freeman. How you doing, Chad?
I'm doing great. How's it going?
I'm all right, and glad to have you on this super episode as always. And I know Avengers is your favorite topic to talk about, you know. But,
definitely.
So I was actually surprised you made it out the opening weekend for this one.
Definitely.
You know,
no, just had to. I mean, the thing is that I liked Infinity War quite a bit, so I mean, I wasn't super excited for this one, but I was excited. And this year's been good for superhero movies so far. Captain Marvel, Shazam. So, I mean, I guess I'm kind of like, bring it on. So.
Yeah, there we go. Maybe Dark Phoenix coming up next. But
hey, I'm on board for that one. I am.
I was surprised. I kind of like the trailer, the newest trailer that they showed before this. I thought it looked a little bit better than what I thought before, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Before we derail too much, let's jump into some puzzle pieces. What do you got to start off for Avengers Endgame?
Okay, so here's what I'll say that my puzzles. They're a little bit different than normal, I would say. They kind of go with themes in a way. So what I'll do is kind of go with each theme, which I think tells a good sign of the kind of movie that this is. Because this is what I will say. I will say it was a fun movie, but I don't think it was a good movie, and it's not really a movie. So to break that apart,
here we go.
Of course, I've got to first. I'm going to start off with some my DC references. Okay, so what DC movies did this movie remind me of? It reminded me of the worst made of the DC movies, Suicide Squad and Justice League. Okay. This movie, it is as poorly made as those two films, I feel. It is a chopped up, heaping mess of a movie. It is not a like story. It is just like cut and pasted parts cobbled together. That's what I feel like. That there isn't a, like there isn't a central focus to it. There's not like, at Iron Man at most is kind of the central of the movie, but not really. I mean, not like Infinity War where Thanos was, it was his movie. And so along the lines with both Suicide Squad and Justice League, just how bad those movies were made and constructed. And here's the thing: the bad part is that those were so poorly made because of so much interference with the studios screwing up what the directors were doing. This one didn't have any interference. So
this is a vision. This is a director's vision.
Yes, and this is the way that it's supposed to be. And I'll get into a little bit of why I think it's such a mess.
Yeah, I think you're going to
but-
need to stand up for this opinion here. I'm just going to sit and listen, so go for it.
So anyway, though, here's the thing: is I think both Suicide Squad and Justice League both are very fun. They both have a lot of good qualities in them. I think this movie's very fun. To me personally, it doesn't have even the good qualities of those two films. I would argue that both Suicide Squad and Justice League are far superior to this movie. And that's strictly my opinion. Okay, so to go from the DC into why though is such a mess is my next one that how partly of how this isn't a movie. This is more of a meme meets a Wikipedia entry meets a Hallmark greeting card. Okay, that's what this movie is. I feel like it's almost like they had a checklist of things to hit, and they're like, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, got to wrap this up, got to wrap that up, got to wrap that up. And so they had all of these things that they had to hit. That's what the movie ends up being. It's just things being hit. It's like boom, 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 boom.
Right.
So in that, the Hallmark quality, the greeting card quality is just with all the sappiness of it. It's so heavy-handed with how it wants you to feel. It really plays up to people's feels with the comedy, and then later with just this is supposed to pull at you and really this is supposed to get you teary-eyed or whatever. But I will say that there were parts in Infinity War where I did get teary-eyed near the end. There were parts in Justice League where I got teary-eyed, but in this movie, I didn't care. And the thing is that I don't like Iron Man, and I got no satisfaction anyway. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I do want to stop you for a second here, because we all know that you do not like Iron Man or the man who plays Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr.
That's why I don't like Iron Man.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense that this movie wouldn't connect with you. Now, there are some of the points that you're kind of jumping between that I would almost stand to agree with you a little bit on, because I didn't love this movie as much as most of the people I know who have seen it. Certainly most of the people on this episode. I definitely liked it, though. I liked it much more than you did, for sure. But I can see some of the criticisms that you're talking about. I can see how this is like many pieces of a movie. It's a movie that just exists kind of to finish up all these storylines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, to jump into puzzle pieces specifically, though, about what I was mentioning. So, like, the whole Hallmark and greeting card quality of it, to me, just reminds me of Paul Haggis a lot, which he did that movie Crash, which he wrote $1 Million Baby. Just his movies are so everything is tied up in a neat little bow. It's like everything comes around, and it's just like, oh, here you go. It's nothing is left for interpretation. It's all here is exactly what it is. It's all spelled out. Everything. Of course, I say that about this movie when this movie has tons and tons of loopholes and plot holes that go absolutely nowhere, that it seemed to destroy lots of things that has never come back to, and of course everybody overlooks that. I'm talking about the time travel parts of this movie. That part is all over the place and makes absolutely no sense, I feel. But
time travel rarely does, but I mean, yeah.
So anyway, so Crash. And then also another filmmaker that is that way is Ron Howard. Now, it's funny because I was trying to think of Ron Howard's movies that are really sappy, but the one that this is most like actually is his best movie, or at least in my opinion, his best movie. And that's Solo. Solo is such a Wikipedia movie where it's like, check this off, check this off, check this off, check this off. So it doesn't really have the sappiness of that. Solo didn't have the sappiness of this, but it definitely has that same just not really
it's fan service.
Yeah. It's basically, yeah, it's almost like a fan film in a way. Yeah, fan service is a good way to say it. But speaking of Star Wars, along with Solo, of Force Awakens, with the way how terrible movie it was, but it just plays on the emotions with just the callbacks. I mean, the whole movie itself is a callback to the original Star Wars movie, and then having all the original characters in it, and then of course wrapping up some of the original characters completely, and people love it because it really plays into their emotions. And I think that's another movie that this reminded me of, as far as how it does that. This just is a big playing on the emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And to go into another idea of this movie and how like just weird it is as a movie, is it reminded me of, and this kind of ties into the whole Crash thing though, is like a TV show finale. And specifically ones where they try to tie up everything, like and I hate those, like Breaking Bad and 6 Feet Under. Those are two that specifically just try to tie up every little loose end. And like I prefer the ones where it's even though I didn't care much for the Sopranos finale, I prefer those. I love Dexter. I love the finale for Dexter. I love it where there's more of, okay, you have to kind of think for yourself. This one, there's not really much to think for yourself, except for the time travel stuff,
Right.
which makes no sense. So
yeah, they wrap up quite a lot. Yeah, there's a few little things here and there that you could really think about and like wonder what's going to happen. But for the most part, I mean, I'd say the biggest question left is how exactly there's going to be a Black Widow solo movie.
Right.
But I mean, I'm sure we all have our theories on that.
I think that was a terrible way to wrap her up too. It made no sense. I felt like it made no sense in the context of the movie that she's the one that was holding them together. So
right.
I don't understand also why Captain Marvel didn't snap. Like why didn't Captain Marvel? I don't understand why Captain Marvel wasn't a bigger part of this movie. I mean,
yeah, interesting you say that, because I was thinking about that this morning actually.
She should have been the one with the glove. It makes
she should have either been the one with the glove, or just simply not even been introduced until after this is all over.
Right.
You could have written this movie without Captain Marvel, the movie ever having happened,
right,
or her being in this episode.
Right.
Like it totally was unnecessary. They could have easily, I mean, really all she did was smash through a spaceship, and then she was one of 50 people punching Thanos.
Well,
like,
she came in and was like, it was kind of like Justice League with Superman at the end. She would just come in and do something like amazing, and then was just gone. And it was like, wait, so like she's the one basically wrestling with Thanos early on. She like carries the spaceship down, saves Iron Man, and then later on she comes up, and I forget exactly what she did, but she did something big at the end, and then it was like she wasn't even there. It was just like, right. I don't know, it made no sense. And to me, she's my favorite of all the Marvel characters, and I wanted more of her. I was disappointed there wasn't more of her, and I don't know. I just think there were a lot of things that didn't make sense.
Someone did a breakdown minute by minute of how many minutes each Avenger was in the movie, and she was in the movie for 15 minutes of 3 hours and 6 minutes. 15. That's crazy.
Right.
They just did a whole movie just to introduce her,
right,
so she could be in it for 15 minutes.
Right.
I do think that's very, very strange.
Right.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So if that is all your puzzle pieces, then
hang on, because another concept I had was all stars. Okay, not just all star like events. Okay, so what I was thinking in this regard, as far as movies that I could think of, was like the Cannonball Run from the 80s. It's a mad world back in the 60s, where you just cram in all these different characters. In both cases there, you got a big race, and the other one, it's like they're going in, they're looking for like some treasure. And so you've got all these different characters that just pop up for absolutely no reason. Like, oh wait, there's the Three Stooges, and it's like, why are they there? And they're just there for a second. And at the same time, that reminded me of when I was a kid, Saturday morning cartoons. Okay, each year when Saturday morning cartoons, like the new season was coming, they would do this primetime like kind of a movie where they would introduce like all the different cartoons. And there was this one, as I very much vividly remember, I believe we recorded it on VHS. It was back in the time of Back to the Future, and it was called Back to Next Saturday, and it had this really, really cheesy theme song, and it was Rudy off of The Cosby Show and like Blair off of Facts of Life. And it was basically like an intro to all these new cartoons and some of the old cartoons. And there was some live action with animation, and then just some animation clips too. And anyway, it's just a totally dumb, stupid thing, has no purpose but to just basically introduce and cram in all of these new shows. And basically that's what this movie was. So
that is the most amazingly bizarre comparison to the Avengers. But you know what? As long as we're pissing everybody off with this segment of the episode, let's add grown-ups to that list right there as well. Pulling some Sandler for the episode. Oh, man. Wow. So
yeah, so Back to Next Saturday, look that up. Yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And I'm guessing it had something to do with time travel. When that
I'm gonna have to look that up. That sounds pretty amazing. Oh man. So wow. Any last thoughts? Any closing thoughts on Avengers Endgame? I don't think I even have to ask you how you liked the movie overall.
No, I think I pretty much covered it all.
You've done your job here. I believe you're officially the new Marvel Cinematic Universe supervillain. Now that Thanos is gone.
That's the other thing. They make such a great villain with Thanos, and he's barely in it too. Like, I mean, there are some great moments with Thanos. That's the thing. There are some great moments in this movie. I think there's some, or at least there are some potentially great moments. I think with Thanos, with Captain Marvel, there's some fun stuff with Hulk and Rocket and Thor. But it's just like, it's not really a movie. It really isn't. I mean, there are people that are acting like this is the greatest comic book movie ever. They're calling it a masterpiece, and I'm like, no. I mean, I think I'm not somebody that loves Marvel. I've seen like 6, maybe 7 of however many 20-something movies. So I think, to me, it would seem even more memey and more like Wikipedia if you've seen all of them, because I mean, I think I pretty much caught all the connections and references. I mean, some of them are memes, right? Like the Hell Hydra. I mean, I don't even think that was actually in any of the movies before. I don't know. But, it's almost like the Stan Lee cameos throughout all the movies, that like, this is just a big movie, like using that concept. So yeah, it's like,
wow. Well, this has been interesting. That's for sure. This is a fun little aside from what I'm sure is going to be. We haven't recorded them all yet, but all the little segments are going to be people loving this movie. So it's good. I
liked it.
It's good to pull down the curve a little bit with you. So it's gonna make $350 billion. So we'll let Chad take some shots.
That's amazing to me that this is the best Marvel has to offer, and it's like, it's about as good as Suicide Squad. So.
Hi, this is Wax Trax Records here on 2909 South Decatur. We buy all your old 45s, your old albums, any type of music memorabilia. Also, we sell music memorabilia, albums, CDs, and a lot. Come on down to Wax Trax, 2909 South Decatur, or give me a call at 702-362-4300. Thank you very much.
All right, so it's time for the finished puzzle for Avengers Endgame. This is going to be all of the movies and other things that we talked about during those 6 conversations. So, here we go. We have got Ocean's 12, Community, time travel movies in general, The Wrestler, movies with big ensemble casts and westerns like How the West Was Won, The Magnificent Seven, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, epics like Lawrence of Arabia and Ben-Hur, The Last Jedi, Game of Thrones, Inland Empire, Ocean's 11, Back to the Future 1 and 2, Forrest Gump, Justice League, Suicide Squad, Crash, Million Dollar Baby, Paul Haggis films, Ron Howard films, including Solo, the Star Wars story, The Force Awakens again, Breaking Bad, 6 Feet Under, and other major TV show finales, all-star events like Cannonball Run, Back to Last Saturday, and again, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. So that does it. That's all the things that we just talked about. One other thing I was going to add to the list is the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia clip show episode where they're kind of misremembering their own clips, which kind of is exactly the first thing I thought of while watching the whole segment while they're going back in time and altering their own history and altering the old movies. So I just wanted to add that one to the list there. All right, so I hope you enjoyed all those conversations about Avengers Endgame. What did you think of the movie? Let us know. We'd love to hear what you thought of it. Obviously, the opinions ran the gamut from everybody loving it to Chad Clinton Freeman hating it. That's pretty much the range of reviews when it comes down to Avengers Endgame. But what did you think? Why don't you join our Facebook group, Popcorn and Puzzle Pieces, a movie discussion group, and let us know what you thought of it and probably spark up a nice little debate with Chad. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you are enjoying piecing it together, make sure you're subscribed on your podcast app of choice, and we'd also love it if you'd rate and review us over on iTunes. That would be awesome. We also now have a Patreon account, patreon.com/piecingpod. Right now, you can get a whole bunch of my music, which, as those of you who listen to the show know, I also compose music for film and put out albums of instrumental music. You can get a whole bunch of my albums for supporting the show on Patreon, but we are going to be recording some special bonus episodes that will be on there as well in the near future. So lots of content coming to the Patreon. But to be honest with you, I really just want you all listening to the show. I don't care if you support the Patreon, but if you want to, go for it. Why not? If I didn't say so already, make sure you follow us on social media at PiecingPod. Check out our website, piecingpod.com, where you can find all the rest of our episodes, including this Friday's episode on To Dust, which is one of my favorite movies of 2019. And this is really awesome. I actually got a chance to interview the film's writer-director, Sean Snyder, and that interview will be up next week. So I'm really excited to share that interview with all of you. It is a really fun interview. We get into all kinds of really fun film nerd stuff. It was just great, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you all. So that does it for Avengers Endgame. And who knows when the next Avengers episode will be, but I'm sure we'll find something to do another super episode because it's pretty fun talking to a whole bunch of people for little short conversations. It was a lot of work to get it all scheduled and put together, but I think it came out really great, and I'm happy with it. So I'm going to leave you guys with a piece of my music, as I always do. And, Avengers Endgame being the biggest movie in the world and probably going to be the biggest movie ever, I was thinking it would be kind of fun to play my most successful song. I've played it on the show before. It's called Dreams Like These. It's from my album An Unseen Sky. It's been featured on a bunch of playlists, which have gotten it a ton of play on like Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff. So that is how it really gets that kind of attention, since I'm not like, a band or something like that. I'm not out there playing shows and stuff. So Thank you to everybody who puts it on your playlists and for continuing to listen to it. So this is Dreams Like These, which is available on my album An Unseen Sky, which is on iTunes and CD Baby and Bandcamp and all those different kinds of sites where you can buy music. And you can also listen to it on Spotify, of course. And you're going to hear it right now.
And all points west.